Hey, it's the Profit Answer Man, Rocky Lalvani. If you're new to the podcast, check out my interview with Mike Michalowicz. It's episode number 2. If you want to hear about each chapter in the Profit First book, go back and listen to episodes 3 through 13. Episode 1 is the why and how. On the Profit Answer Man, we learn money mastery without all the complicated accounting mumbo-jumbo using a simple system. Your accountant is busy documenting your transactions and creating a rearview mirror of what happened. My guess is you don't even look at the reports they sent you. If you're like most business owners, you struggle with this, and it's not your fault. We aren't taught money in school, and accountants aren't taught how to be profitable. The Profit First system created by Mike Michalowicz works, and he certified me to help you implement the system in your business. Remember, the new equation is sales minus profit equals expenses. Let's face it, without cash flow, you can't pay your employees, buy needed materials, or pay your mortgage and support your family. I help you to do that and more, so you can focus on the parts of the business you love and receive the rewards for your labor and investment into your business. The stronger you are as a business owner, the more jobs you create, the better we are as a country. Small business owners are the backbone of America, and for that, you deserve to be well rewarded. Just remember, more revenue does not equal more profit. That's why we focus on the bottom line. Business is simple. Doing simple is hard. Today, we're going to talk about the 5 P's of business. And a big part of that is clarity with each and every one of those parts. Too often we don't know what you do, who you serve, and if you can help me. And that's a problem. So let's review your business and see how you do and help you create the freedom you deserve. Pete Mohr helps entrepreneurs transform their frustrations into freedoms by using a variety of frameworks that help them cut through the chaos and overwhelm of running a business. With over 25 years as a business owner and 11 of those as a retailer, he's refined many of his tips, tools, and techniques in the trenches within his own business. You own your business. It shouldn't own you. It's time to start using frameworks that allow you to have a turnkey business so you have the life you deserve. Let's meet Pete. Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, Pete Mohr. It's great to have you join us today.
Thanks so much, Rocky. I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
As am I. Can you share a little bit about yourself and your business?
Yeah, sure. Well, I've been in business almost all my life. I've really only ever worked for somebody for about 6 months on a full-time basis. So I'm virtually unemployable, Rocky, as most entrepreneurs are, I think, as we age on. And it's like, hey, 27 years later, I don't know that I could actually go to work for somebody. But I've had a lot of different businesses. I've worked in service. I've had bathroom renovation companies. I've had a cleaning business that we grew from 30 clients to 300 and then sold. I was a business broker for a while, helping people buy and sell businesses. For the last dozen or so years, I've owned some shoe stores. And I have Simplifying Entrepreneurship, which is my business that we're going to chat a little bit about today, which is all around coaching other entrepreneurs live the lives that they want to and sort of what I call reduce frustration and create more freedom.
So why are business owners so frustrated and have no freedom?
Well, they, for the most part, do it to themselves. And it's not because they can't have freedom. It's because they don't know how. And, you know, that's just one of the things we get into business. And when we're, especially those first, 2-3 years, we're maybe a lot of times cash shy. So we're doing so much stuff ourselves and we get into these routines of just doing and working 50, 60, 70 hours a week and having to make every decision is another habit that's kind of a bad habit. So, when you habitually do this stuff for 2-3 years, it's hard to let some of that stuff go. And that's what you need to do in order to create freedoms. You have to actually start to let some things go, give them off to other people, hand them over in a good way that's going to Help you work in your unique ability or your area of genius, and let them do the very same when your team starts to grow and all this sort of stuff, so that you can get your life back, enjoy some of the freedoms. First of all, what are the freedoms that you want? I mean, everyone's uniquely yours as the entrepreneur, but if you're not getting any of them, and some of mine are, I want to be healthy. I want to have great relationships with my family, my friends, and the people I work with. I want to have a certain amount of wealth. I want to have a certain amount of leisure time. I want to be growing in other ways. What are yours? And is your business providing that? Because we get into business, Rocky. We get into business and, we have these freedoms. We have these ideas of what we want out of it. And often after 5-10 years, you kind of look back and you're saying, shoot, I haven't done any of these yet. So if you're feeling that way, then, hopefully you'll enjoy this conversation.
So today we're going to talk about your 5 Ps model, which is promise, product, process, people, and my favorite, profit.
Yeah. Without the profit, you don't have a business, right? In most cases, and unless you're a not-for-profit, but we need to create that. It's a big piece.
It is a very important piece, and it is something that you need to begin with and reverse engineer. We always say profit is a habit. It is not an event. And too often business owners think that profit is an event sometime in the future and not a habit that we build from day one.
Yeah. And I mean, keeping that profit in mind, if you write out 2 words with an equal sign, profit equals freedom, as far as I'm concerned. You can't enjoy freedoms without having amount of profit. And it's only when you have enough profit and then you have the freedom to actually choose and make decisions around that profit on how you're going to create more freedom for yourself. And that could be, I'm going to hire another manager, or I'm going to hire somebody to take some of those duties off. I'm going to outsource something. I'm going to, it doesn't really matter what you're going to do with that profit. Maybe with that profit, you want to buy a triplex for, another passive income. You might want to take more time off. I mean, I'm going to take off the month of March and go away. Well, I couldn't do that if I didn't have the profit within my business to allow me to set the business up the way I want to deliver me back the freedoms that I want to have.
Makes total sense to me. I just don't understand why everyone else doesn't listen.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think through conversations like this, that's why we do podcasting. And that's why we're having these kind of conversations, because we want people out there who are listening to enjoy whatever their freedoms are. I mean, somebody might not want to go away for a month, but somebody might have an entirely different freedom that they do want, and that's okay. It doesn't matter what it is. It just matters that you know what you want for your freedoms. You know what you want to do with some of those profits, so that, because, you own your business and it shouldn't own you. And from that perspective, I think that's the base of it. If you're feeling as though your business is owning you, then you got some work to do.
That you do. And part of that is just design process of designing a business that doesn't own you and then making sure that it happens.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's dig into these 5 Ps. What is his promise all about?
So the promise is really where it all starts, at that bottom, when you're working through this stuff. And you need to, the reason I used to be 4 Ps, and I've added this 5 P as I'm writing this book. And because I'm always referring back to the promise. It's the promise. It's the promise. And the promise is what you deliver for what you get paid, essentially. And when you think about your promise, it starts like I call it problem, solution, result. So what's the problem your customer's facing? What's your unique solution that's unique to you? And how are you delivering either that product or the service that you provide so that they can live a better life? Because everybody buys a better future. Everybody buys a better future. And when you think about that, what's the transformation from their problem to their future with you in the middle as the solution? And that's the promise. So, again, it's uniquely yours. It's uniquely within your business and what you offer. But if you think of it in that easy framework, then you've got all your marketing behind you. You've got all your culture behind you. You've got your alignment for the people, alignment for the product that you're going to provide or your service. I mean, everything stems from there so that you can actually carry on that transformation from the problem to the life better after.
And that makes a lot of sense. And I guess part of that is actually defining it all and putting it down and making it clear to everyone what you do.
Clarity is where it all starts. Yeah.
Clarity is where it starts. And I think that is one of the biggest things I have seen with business owners is they struggle with clarity.
Without it, everything's sort of, hodgepodge. Our job as leaders is to communicate clarity every day, all day long.
And I know you do Story Brand, right?
I do.
Yeah. And that is the big part of Story Brand is get it down to those 3 sentences that just make it clear for everyone. And I think that's what more people need to spend time on. And it's something that I see a lot of new business owners really struggle with. Like you start talking to them, I have no idea what you do and why you do it and how you do it. Because
I just got off the line with somebody, and they're not a new business, and they have a lot of people, several dozen people working for them right now. And when I took a look at their website and I said, on your website, I still don't understand what you guys do. I still don't get it. Like if I can't read on your website, and the website looks awesome. I mean, it's cool. It's the right colors, all this. I mean, it looks nice. I still don't know what they do when I read the website, right? In 5 minutes, I can't really pinpoint what problem they're solving. I still can't pinpoint how, if I use their service, my life's going to be any better. So when you look at that, their promise, they might have a promise, they might have the mission and vision internally, but they're not showing it outwardly. So when we talk about this communication side of things and the clarity around that, so important to start there so that everything that's packed in behind it, the decision making, because as leaders, what we do is make decisions and communicate. So from that side of things, we want to be making every decision that's tying back to the promise all the time, because it really clarifies your decision making too. It's like, oh, if this doesn't align with the promise, then we can't do it. Now's not the time.
That makes total sense. You say product.
Yeah.
What do you mean by product?
Well, product or service. I mean, service starts with an S and it's the 5 Ps. So I use product. But, product or service. And again, we're kind of going back to that alignment, right? Everything that we're going to talk about here today is really in alignment with that promise. And so with the product side of things or your service, you're always looking to match that product. Does it actually deliver the promise? Does it take our clients through the transformation? And when you look at that, a lot of people get tied up with legacy products. And I see this a lot with the businesses that I work with. And it's like, oh, we've always done it that way. We've always offered that service, or we've always had that product and people expect it of us. Well, things change. A lot of things have changed in the last couple of years. And, they're going to continue to change. So when you look at that, it's like, probably about 10% of your product mix needs to be parsed off. About 70% of it needs to be honed down and made even better. It's got to be cheaper. It's got to be quicker. It's got to be easier to use for your clients. And about 20% of the stuff is the new stuff that you as the leader needs to be looking at always to bring it in, so that you're always testing this new stuff so it can become part of the 70%. It can become part of what your customers are expecting and delivering of your promise in a better way, because there's no perfect process, but we're always trying to perfect the processes for our clients and for our team, right? And that's just all this part of making your product even better, always, and in full alignment with your promise.
One of the biggest things we do is we look at all their products or services, and we look at their profitability, looking at both time and costs. Yeah. And then if we find that one product or one area is really blowing it out, we tell them to stop doing everything else. Shift your business from all the unprofitable or low profit margin or high headache to where all your profitability is coming from. And that's where you should focus your efforts.
It seems simple, Rocky, but a lot of people are still focusing on stuff that is not profitable, right? When we dig into some of this stuff, it's amazing, really. They're dealing with high stress stuff and non-profitable stuff. And it's like, they're doing it. Why are you doing it? And, if our listeners are thinking, why are we doing that? Then you've got to dig down into some of this stuff and find out the real reasons.
And what I find is a lot of times they've never been able to look at their business and understand where their profit's coming from.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's very easy in some businesses, but in some businesses, it takes time and effort to figure out where your pools of profit are.
For sure.
And you've just got to go through the process. And most people are too busy running around to actually do that.
Yeah. And that's the idea of working on your business, not in it, right? Where as leaders, we need to set aside certain amounts of time in a given week or quarter in order to work on the business and go through this kind of stuff. It's vital to the success of our businesses.
It is. Thinking about your business is a very important step, and I promote that a lot, giving people the questions to how do you think about your business and what are the different areas that you need to do that. Yeah. Which, of course, probably leads to our next topic, which is process.
Yeah. Process. It's a big one. I mean, we have processes throughout our business. And what I find with a lot of the people that I'm working with is that their processes are kind of half-assed, let's call it, and a lot of them are even up here. And I know we're not on video, but I'm pointing to my head. If all of your processes are in the manager's head or in your head as the entrepreneur, then that's why you're having a lot of frustration, because nobody knows how to actually activate those. And, there's processes in your hiring, there's processes in your firing, in your operations, in your marketing, in your sales, in your customer service. I mean, in your bookkeeping, all of those different things need to be fully outlined and flushed out. If you do something more than 3 or 5 times, it needs to have a process that's repeatable and easy and understandable by all who are going to do it, so that every decision can be made at the lowest possible level of the accountability chart in your organization.
I love checklists and processes to get stuff done, because you then stop thinking and then you start doing. And
it'll be automagical, right?
Yeah. And that is phenomenal. And it's like, okay, we have to do this. What are the steps? Just go do it. And things get done so much faster and easier.
When you start aligning those processes and you start assigning accountability to them, then that's when you start to free your time up. Most entrepreneurs that I work with are out of time. They're just out. They might have some money, but they're out of time and they want their time back. And it's only through doing this kind of stuff that you're going to get your time back, where you have the comfort and feeling that, yes, the process is as good as it's going to get right now. I can assign accountability. I can have somebody else look after the decision making there, so that they're fully in charge of that. And then I don't have to hear about it unless there's a real issue that's outside of the process. And when that's the case, then I should be involved, because I'm the leader, right? So basically, when I look at that kind of stuff, it's like I want all decisions to be made at the lowest possible level all the time. And the only time is when there's outliers that it comes up the accountability chart.
That makes a lot of sense. And yet, a lot of business owners struggle to get their processes in place.
Yeah. It's so good for the client when that happens too, Rocky, because the client's going to get faster, better service too when they have a question. It doesn't have to go up the line and come back down the line and all this other stuff. It's just like it can be dealt with right then. Why would your customer not want to just have an answer when they ask a question?
It makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
Next up is the part that everyone struggles with.
The big one.
The big one, people.
Yeah. It's what keeps us up at night in a lot of cases. And I structure people into 3 different categories. One is your ideal client, one is your terrific team members, and one is your sort of process outsource partners, essentially. Anybody who's helping you deliver your promise. And when we look at those, if we just start with your ideal client, I'm sure that you can think of the worst ever client you've ever had. You probably know that person by name, first and last, and you can picture them right now and saying, oh my God, that was, Mr. or Mrs. Smith. And you can also remember probably the best client that you've ever had, right? Mr. or Mrs. Smith. And the best thing you can do there is to really just take a sheet of paper, and on the left side, all of the characteristics of your worst ever, all the characteristics of your best ever on the right side, and think about how you can arrange all of your marketing, all of your conversations, all of the things that you're doing to attract clients and repel clients, because it's just as important to repel clients as it is to attract. We want to be repelling those worst clients in everything we say and do. We don't want them to take our time or create more frustration. We want to have the best ever clients who understand our systems, understand our processes, understand the transformation that we're going to take them through, and can afford to pay for it. Right? Getting back to the profit side, Rocky, they need to be able to afford to pay for it, right? Which is another frustration where there's people out there that want your services, but they really can't afford it. And that's unfortunate, but until they're in a position to where they can afford it, they aren't your ideal client.
That's why I have the podcast. We teach them how to do it themselves. See, we don't hide anything on this podcast. Everything I do, we share openly. So you're not going to find anything out by being a client.
It's just the way it is. And when you're communicating that, because you know what your promise is, and you're just out front and obvious about it, then you are attracting the right clients and you are repelling the wrong ones. And that's a good thing. And you're doing the same with your team members, by the way. Best ever, worst ever. Best ever, worst ever, all your outsourced suppliers. Like in my case, I own some shoe stores. So the brands and the different stuff. Or in this case, it might be a VA, like for my Simplifying Entrepreneurship business. It might be best ever VA or best ever marketing associate or whatever the case is, But think about all of those different things around that. And you can literally scorecard these things so that whenever you're introducing a new person, a new client comes in, you can put them against the scorecard. Whenever you're interviewing for a team member, you're putting them against the scorecard, remembering your worst, remembering your best, aligning for those so that you're going to pick the best person for that sphere of influence.
So I think a struggle that a lot of small business owners face is they can't find A players.
Yeah.
Any advice for them?
Be stronger about what your mission is. They probably don't know what it is you do properly. Like I said, I used an example of a client that I was just on, or a discovery call I was just on, and saying, like, I don't even know what you guys do. If I was looking to go to an interview, if your website doesn't really detail in very easy sort of situation of understanding what it is you do, how do you expect a prospective team player to come in here and say, do I align with these guys? Like, I really don't even know what they do. You have to be clear about your promise, and you want to have people align with that promise. And if they aren't aligning, they aren't the right people for you. So you'll start to pull those people in. And yeah, does it take time? It does take time. But the more you get, the more loyalty you build when you're aligning that fully within your organization. And in retail, we own retail stores, and retail is typically a fairly transitional type position. Well, I can tell you that we've had a lot of long-time people working with us because they fully align with what we do at our shoe stores, and they want to be a part of that. It's not just a job to come in, sell a couple of shoes and go home. It's more than that. It's a community. It's an experience. It's a whole thing that we do in alignment with our goals. And when you have that sort of system in place, people start coming to you. And we've had many employees who have moved away and come back and stuff like that have knocked on our door and say, we want to come back to work now that we're back in town and all this sort of stuff. We love working here. And so it's an interesting thing when you're building this around and communicating it through everything you do internally and externally, how it can attract the best players.
And that makes sense. If you don't have clarity and you're not playing your A game, then an A player is not going to want to be part of that. And it's about more than money. And I think that's the part they forget. Incredibly so.
It's amazing to know how much it is more than just the money. And each of those reasons are uniquely that person's reasons. Maybe they just want to be 5 minutes. You live 5 minutes away and it works and, everything aligns. Maybe it's because they like the flexibility. You can work a little bit from home or not from home. There's so many different reasons why people go to work for different organizations and think about the different things that you offer in your business that may be uniquely different, that would attract the right person to you because of your offering. And so many business owners never even say that. They wouldn't say in an ad, for example, that we have flexible work hours, or that you can work from home 2 or 3 days a week, or that, we have a health plan, or that we, because some people may never even entertain working for somewhere if they didn't have a health plan, right? And other people, maybe it doesn't matter. But when you're laying some of this stuff out, what are the benefits in other things other than, okay, you're going to get $50,000 a year or whatever your salary base is? It's a lot more than that.
And if people are just coming to you for the money, it's not going to end up being a good fit.
They have to be in alignment with the promise. They're not going to, either they're not going to stay or you're going to ask them not to stay. It could happen both ways.
So our last P is profit. I'd love to hear your take on it.
Yeah. Well, I kind of started with our little preamble at the beginning about the fact that profit equals freedom. And, I know you talk a lot about profit, so we won't talk a ton of it here today because I'm sure it's been fully flushed out on all the podcasts. But you know what? You can't have freedom if you don't have profit. You are going to be driven back to doing all the little details. You are going to be making all the little decisions. You are going to be frustrated in the work that you do because you're not working in your unique ability. You're not working in your zone of genius. You're not doing the things you love. You're doing some of the things you love, but spending a lot of times on the things that give you frustration.
And it's always nice when you can pay people to do your frustrations. And that makes it a lot easier. But in order to do that, you need to be profitable.
Yeah. And you know what? What's your frustration is somebody else's freedom. Let's use bookkeeping, for example. I'm, inches away from being an accountant based on my schooling, but I chose not to be. And in fact, I'm very good at book work. I just don't like to do it. Mm-hmm. So you can be really good at something and it still cause you friction and frustration, right? So I choose to farm that out. I choose to have a bookkeeper do that work for me, even though I'm capable and competent in order to do it. But that's not where I want to play. Had I not had the money in my business to hire somebody who's doing that for me, I would have been struggling to do that and probably procrastinating it and all of the other stuff that goes along with frustration. But you know what? Until you have a certain amount of profit, and the profit comes through aligning of all those P's that we talked about, you just can't free up some of those frustrations. And that's why we also talked about that sort of first 1 to 3 years is often a frustrating sort of time to push through. But once you're through that and can start to delegate some of these things, you can take back some of your freedom.
So true. And if you don't look at your finances, you will be in trouble. It's just the reality of it. And I know most of you are not accountants and you don't want to be. So find somebody to do it for you. Exactly. And make it a lot easier. So one of the things you had mentioned earlier, you have a business assessment to share today. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So if you just go over to simplifyingentrpreneurship.com and press take the assessment, it's kind of all over my website, but the first one's in the top right-hand corner, take the assessment. The assessment takes you to a quick little assessment. It takes about 12 minutes, maybe 15 minutes to do. It's multiple choice, short answer. But what it does is it spits you back this awesome assessment of between sort of 50 and 60 pages around all of the things that you're doing really well in your business and some of the things that you need a little work on, to be quite frank. It kind of green lights and red lights different areas of your business in execution and marketing and sales, in operations. And, when you work through the assessment, it'll just kind of flag a few things for you and say, hey, good job, good job, good job. Oh, need a little bit of work here. So it gives you sort of some guidance as to the things that you might want to look at here as you're planning out your next year.
And we'll put a link to that too in the show notes to make it easy for everyone.
Awesome.
Is there anything that we haven't talked about today that you wanted to make sure that we covered?
Well, Rocky, we can talk all day, I'm sure, with the stuff that you and I talk about. But this is a good wrap for this one, I think.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and tell everyone again where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn at Pete Mohr, Mohr. You can email me at pete@mohr.coach or at Simplifying Entrepreneurship.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Make it a great day, Rocky.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. My name is Geeta. I am one of the Profit First professionals on the Profit Comes First team. And I'm just going to give you a brief summary of today's episode and also an action challenge that you can walk away with. Today's episode kind of builds on last week's episode in a way because Pete and Rocky talked about time and systems, again, in the same way that Peter and Rocky did last week. Managing your time and ensuring you have systems in place in your business are so important to making sure that you as a business owner have the time and the energy to focus on what you're good at and focus on what you love. Another reason why time and systems are important is because it allows you to bring in your ideal client. This episode talks about your ideal client as that one client that you have that is just always a joy to provide service to. The client that you wish your other clients were more like. It's the type of client that reminds you why you love what you do. Today's action challenge is going to focus on getting you more of those ideal clients. Here are some questions that you can think about and answer to give you a better picture of whether you have systems set up in place to attract your ideal client. The first question may seem really simple, but do people know what products and services you offer? Do you have a website or is it on your social media? Do you have a just really clear picture of what you are uniquely offering to your customers, and do you explain it clearly to them? And secondly, do those clients who come to you looking for services have a clear picture of what your culture and your vision is in your company and for your company? And are you attracting the kind of people that understand that and value that? If you find that a lot of the clients that come to you don't understand any of those things that I've just described, maybe it's time to reevaluate how you're presenting yourself on your website, on your social media, or even in person when you tell your story and answer the question of what do you do or what services do you provide? If you want a done-for-you service, you can hire us as your Chief Profitability Officers. You have your own area of expertise, and maybe you want to spend more of your time doing what you love. We only work with a handful of clients, so they all get our full attention. We work with business owners who have or are growing to $500,000 to $5 million in revenue. You can use the scheduling link in the show notes to get on our calendar for a good fit conversation to see if we're the right people to support you and how we can help you.
Hey, it's Rocky. Don't forget to check out my other podcast, Richer Soul, where we talk about life beyond money and how to live that ultimate life and become a better leader in your company. As we close out, let's repeat the mantra. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. Have an abundant and profitable week.